best entertainment on the earth. Tune in for Comics with Perch.
Sell crazy someplace else. We're all stocked up here.
Hey everybody, this is Perch, and on the topic of online threats, they exist. It's been a part of the world that I think people have lived in since message boards and the Usenet exists. But for some reason, every time there's a big jump of population on the internet, people immediately start talking about how this is a new rise. And in reality, it's maybe a rise because more people are on the internet, but this isn't new behavior, unfortunately. So ICV2 has an article out, and I got sent this article. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate the person who sent it. And the article, I'm going to read it to you. And then there's issues on kind of all fronts here. But I want to make it clear before we get into it that obviously, for me anyway, hopefully it's obvious for you, the behavior that's described in this article is wrong. There shouldn't really be a debate or a question about that, and that's certainly not the purpose of this video. So here we go. It says, California man threatened DC IGN? Okay. Over John Kent's bisexuality. From FBI affidavit. This was posted on April 28th. It says, a California man admitted sending threats to DC Comics, an unnamed DC writer, I'm Tom Taylor, and the website IGN.com, according to an affidavit filed by FBI Special Agent Casey Anderson in a case involving threats to the dictionary publisher Merriam-Webster. What? Merriam-Webster? Okay. Anyway, we'll get to the meat of this article. The threats to DC and IGN began on October 12th, 2021, the day that DC announced that John Kent is bisexual. IGN received 8 communications that day, both emails and comments through its website, threatening violence and denigrating LGBTQ people. Quote, I am going to shoot up and bomb your headquarters for discriminating against conservatives and silencing conservative speech, one of the messages read. The only good Democrat is a dead Democrat. I will kill you all for discriminating against and silencing me for criticizing the radical homosexual agenda. On October 16th, a writer for DC, unnamed in the affidavit, that's Tom Taylor, reported receiving Facebook messages from a Facebook user named Jeremy Hansen threatening to kill him, rape, and decapitate his wife and blow up DC headquarters. The affidavit also states that several email addresses associated with DC received emails with the subject line, I am going to shoot up and bomb your offices for ruining Superman, that contained several other threats. In an interview with FBI agents on October 27th, Hansen admitted to making threatening remarks online to IGN and DC regarding the sexual orientation of Superman, John Kent. He also said that he suffers from a number of conditions. Well, I mean, duh. And he struggles with impulse control. And that while he knows making online threats is illegal, he is unable to control himself or his emotions. And then it goes on. The affidavit includes accounts from his mother, developmental disorders, kind of long stage stress during the coronavirus, change in medications. She claimed he posed no threat to the community because he's reclusive. She supervises him. He has no access to weapons. He also apparently, he said it's supporting a criminal case charging Hansen with making threats to Merriam-Webster that caused the dictionary publisher to shut down its offices for 5 days. The affidavit also enumerated threats he had made to the ACLU, Amnesty International, Hasbro Toys, Walt Disney, and others that all linked, IP addresses, email accounts, cell phone number, all linked to Hansen. So he's being charged with interstate communication of threats to commit violence, and he was arrested and released with conditions. So there's a lot to unpack here. Again, obviously, this behavior is wrong. I say obvious. I hope it's obvious to everyone that this is crazy town behavior. But there's a number of little pieces to kind of unpack and drill into. And I think this story, there's just so many elements to it that kind of get us into the problem we're in today. But I want to point out a couple things for you, because oftentimes we hear creators, and this story is being shared around by a number of creators right now, saying, this is what we have to deal with. These are among the hundreds and thousands of threats we get every week. So first off, I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't believe there are thousands of threats every week. Or at the very least, I don't believe there are thousands of unique threats every week. Like in this Hansen case, and it was kind of tucked away there at the end, he used multiple IP addresses, email accounts, cell phone numbers, all linked to him. And that's generally how these things work. And that's not my opinion. That's the opinion of the courts and the FBI and people who looked into that. You get one person who creates noise of 20 people, because that's how the game is played. But the other thing is there's also been lots of threats to this. And this may sound like I'm somehow trying to minimize or erase this behavior. Not at all. But I'm trying to give some hope and some positive feelings to people who may be on the receiving end of threats. There's been a lot of research and a lot of studies from Boston University and from many different colleges, many different professionals that looked into people who received threats, particularly during Gamergate. And what they found is, to a person, everyone always overestimated the amount of threats that they got. They asked the recipients to say, how many threats did you get? And they would guess things like hundreds or thousands. And in reality, it was dozens. Now, why do people do this? Well, simple. When you're being threatened in your life, when somebody's telling you, I'm going to blow up your house, or I'm going to kill your wife, or, all the rest, when they come after you, it is emotionally charged. It's terrifying. You get scared. You don't know who's out there, who's watching you, especially with some of these, the more sophisticated threats where they talk about, I know where you live and that kind of stuff. It puts you on edge. It dominates your thinking and your mind. And it feels like a lot more than it actually is. That's not to say these threats aren't serious. Sometimes they're serious. Sometimes they are the result, in this case, clearly from a crazy person. But it means that in enhancing them further for yourself, it's harmful to you. The reality is this: if you get one threat, a dozen threats, or 100 threats, it's still scary. It's still terrifying. It's still bad. Whether it's one threat or a dozen threat, the volume of threats actually doesn't really matter. Once one person or a handful of people have threatened your life, it really doesn't matter if 3 people are coming after you, or a dozen people are coming after you, 100 people are coming after you. It's serious. You feel threatened. And so it's just important to kind of be able to dial it back into your mind. If you're trying to just get peace in yourself, you got to be able to say, look, I this feels very scary, but let's put it in context. Let's try and relax a little bit, to some extent, as much as you can in these things. I'm just saying it's for your own good. It also is going to dramatically help getting it solved. If you go to report this stuff or go try and take action, taking action against a dozen people is doable. Taking action against thousands of people is almost impossible. So, put it in context so you can take action appropriately. It's just advice. The other piece to this that is disappointing in a sense is that the article, which is on ICV2, it ran the headline, California Man Threatened DC IGN Over John Kent's Bisexuality. And that's the catchy headline. What they want to do is say, here's a person who's against LGBT community, and they that's the headline. Except that's really not the headline of the story. The headline of the story is you've got a guy who clearly has mental problems, threatening over this, also threatening Democrats, apparently, also threatening whatever the issue was with Hasbro. A more accurate headline probably would have been, mentally ill California man threatens many companies and gets caught by FBI. I mean, that's kind of the headline, but by posing it this way, it pokes a fire. It basically gets people who are involved in the culture war to go, oh, here's somebody else. Here's somebody who's attacking the LGBT community. He is, but for the good of all of us, we need to stress what is actually important here. And what's actually important here is crazy person did crazy things that against everyone, all kinds of people. So I get that the LGBTQ community gets hatred. Absolutely, I'm not denying it. But you gotta get to the take it a step up. If you want to solve this, by putting this out here, and it's what's already happened. I got sent this in mail, and then I just started looking around Facebook, and sure enough, a number of creators are all posting this, going, "This is what we have to deal with. These are the people coming after us. This is why all the Republicans are bad." I mean, immediately it escalates. The challenge is, what's the result you want here? The result you want here is for this guy to be arrested and get help. To not be in this position. You want the people at DC, you want the writers not to take this kind of stuff. Hopefully, your goal is not to further inflame a war between groups, because what happens is people take this and they overgeneralize. This is what all my critics are like, and the fact is, you can dislike Tom Taylor's Superman without being a homophobe. Plenty of people do. They may dislike it because they don't like John Kent's been aged up. They may not like Tom Taylor's writing. There's lots of reasons you might not like this book. The fact that he's bisexual is one factor, and I'm sure there are people who are angry at the book over that. But that's not everything. And if we start taking criticism and we point it all at one group, at one people, it does us no good. It angers people. The people who do not like the book, but have no problems with the LGBTQ community, those people feel like they're being painted as bigots and homophobes and ugly things, and it makes them angry, and then they lash out. And that's the cycle that we are stuck in. We gotta stop this. You cannot paint a critic of everything in the harshest possible terms. That critic may just, again, not like the writing, the character might not work for them, might not like superhero stories, might be a complete asshole. But being an asshole is not always linked to being a homophobe. You can be an asshole homophobe, you can also just be a plain old asshole. There's a lot of things that go on here, and continuing to shape the dialogue and the debate this way, it's not doing anyone any good. It's not helping the LGBTQ community. It's not helping the comic readers or the writers. It's not helping DC. It's not helping the mentally ill man here who needs help. And it also creates things where people say, "Well, I've never seen anything like that," and then nobody starts really getting their arms around this behavior. I've seen and I've received emails saying, "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to go after your family. I've received those emails. I don't get hundreds a day. I get probably one, maybe two a week. I don't like them. Doesn't make me happy. I think people writing them are sick. I think generally the people writing them are screwing around. I think they heard, a bigger YouTuber crap on me during a live stream or make jokes, and this is how they decide to carry on that agenda. Like this guy who apparently, believes that all conservatives have been silenced and their speech has been silenced, and the solution to that is to threaten to blow up Disney. There are people out there like that, and they're sick, and they need help. And but it's this desire to poke everything into the culture war is not ending the culture war; it's just continuing it. And I do think if you're an article writer, if you're a news reporter, if you're whatever you're doing in all this, you got to start being more responsible about the actual story you wrote. By posing it all over, threatened over John Kent's bisexuality, you are framing the narrative in a very specific way, and you're basically ensuring that there will be more of this. I don't know. That's my 2 cents. No, I don't blame the writer. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the writer. I've just asked the writer to think about it a little bit. We need to protect the people in our communities of all types, including LGBTQ people, from crazy individuals who are going off and doing these things and constantly poking this war. It may work for all the sane people out there, which thankfully is the majority. That's fine. But for the whatever it is, 1%, 5% who get triggered into insanity, who get easily, riled up into violence, those people, this is like bait to them. My opinion. You can disagree by all means, but I would like to see some help. I do feel bad for Tom Taylor, for DC people, for any staffer who receives this kind of mail. It's scary and it's terrible. And the only thing I guess I would say with it is, thankfully, it is rare. If you get this kind of mail, if you're receiving this kind of stuff, make sure you have some friends who are not just going to say, "Oh man, this is terrible. You received this stuff." That's great. But have some friends who can also parse it out for you to say, hey, this does seem bad, you're right. But, this is 5 crazy people. This is a dozen crazy people. You've got thousands and hundreds of friends. So, let's make sure you're protected against the crazies. But, in the grand scheme of things, you're doing okay. Thanks for listening.